right. Thanks for joining us. Amy has just started her presentation. I forgot to record, so we're going to do that. I'm going to go back and make you the host.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I think we were on the fourth yoga pose for low back pain. Was yogi squat or garland pose. So you're going to bring your feet nice and wide. Try to keep the heels towards the ground. So you can always roll up a mat or a towel, place them underneath your heels if it doesn't touch. Also, you can place a block underneath your hips to bring the ground closer to you if you don't have that hip mobility. And then you can start to kind of bring your elbows inside of your inner thighs and then use them to kind of gently press back into those knees. You can bring the hands to heart center, keeping that torso nice and upright. So you want to really think about a nice, tall, lengthened spine when you're in this pose. So crown of the head is reaching towards the ceiling, tailbone towards the ground. You're going to hold it for about a minute and you're going to breathe. So taking those deep inhales through the nose, exhales out through the nose. So our yoga breath is a little bit different than we breathe in other exercises. So it's called Ujjayi breath. So you want to breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. It almost sounds like that Darth Vader, kind of like oceanic waves crashing in and crashing out. So that's your breath that you're going to hold during these poses. So this pose is going to help to stretch everything around the lower back, the quads, the groin, the hips, and the torso. And it also helps to strengthen your ankles. So our next pose is the Sphinx pose. And this is just kind of a restorative back bend. So you're going to start off lying on your belly. Your legs can come hip width apart or even wider if you need a little more release in that low back. You're going to internally rotate the inner thighs to broaden and lengthen your low back and sacrum. You want to squeeze your buttocks or your glutes to support the low back. And then you just place those elbows under the shoulders. So you have that perfect 90-degree angle. So the shoulders above the elbow, and then that wrist is in line with the elbow. Those forearms are parallel to each other. Shoulders roll back and down. And then you're going to lift your head off the ground. Just breathe here. Just steadily draw your lower belly off the floor. So draw that navel into the spine. That's going to help to support and soothe that low back. You want to hold this pose for about 5 to 10 breaths and repeating that as you like. So you can lower it down and do a few rounds of that. And then the next pose is knees to chest. So just simple lying on your back, hugging those knees. And so it's almost like a reverse child's pose that we saw on the previous slide. You want to make sure that that back is completely extended. So think about bringing the head to the ground and then just a slight tuck of the chin to lengthen the cervical spine, and then keep the tailbone on the ground to help lengthen cervical, thoracic, and that lumbar spine. You're going to bend one knee at a time and then bring it into your chest and hug it. You can kind of gently rock a little bit side to side too. That's a nice little back massage, just a gentle massage for that low back if you rock side to side, front to back. So
quick question, Amy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you mind sharing your slides again?
Oh, you can't see them? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you click that green button, share screen, that it should pop it right back up.
Okay, I lost that. Hold on. Let me get out of there real quick.
Looks good.
Okay, you guys can see it now? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, let me go back to it. All right, so yeah, that's the knees to the chest. And that's going to help to just kind of lengthen that cervical, like I said before, thoracic and that lumbar spine. It helps to relax that low back and it reduces that low back pain. So the final pose that I have for you guys is that supine spinal twist. Now, sometimes twisting can irritate the low back, so you have to be really, really gentle if you have low back issues on those twists. So you can reduce the range of motion. If it doesn't feel good, then just don't do it at all. But from this one, you're going to start on your back. Arms will come out like a T. And then you're already set up from that knees to chest pose, just to gently drop the knees over to one side. If it's okay for your cervical spine, you can take the gaze over the opposite shoulder. So the cervical or supine spinal twist can help to lengthen and relax the spine, which is great for that tight or sore low back. And just holding that for about 1 to 2 minutes and then repeating it on the left side. This pose is going to help to stretch the glutes, the back muscles, and lengthen the spine, like I mentioned before. So those are the 8 different poses that you can do to help to ease low back pain. And in yoga, a lot of times we do our physical practice first, and that kind of helps to get rid of all of that energy that allows you to then sit still in your meditation. So from there, we're going to talk about what is meditation. So after you do these poses, then you can work on a nice meditation. It kind of is a good way to lead right into a meditation after doing that physical practice. So meditation is the practice of focusing the mind on a particular object, thought, or activity for a period of time while observing any thoughts or feelings that arise without engaging in them. So you kind of become the observer. So depending on how you're feeling that day, you don't want to attach to it. You just want to observe it, and then focusing on whatever you decide to focus on during your meditation to kind of shift the focus onto something else. When we do that, we become more focused and connected to the present moment. Studies have shown that meditation can effectively relieve low back pain by developing the ability to shift your focus and concentration from discomfort onto something more soothing. It also alleviates the accompanying conditions of low back pain, such as anxiety, depression, and stress. So unfortunately, a lot of times when we're unable to do our activities of daily living, these different unwanted feelings arise, such as anxiety, depression, and stress. Meditation can help to kind of soothe and relieve those as well. So the benefits of meditation for low back pain, it's really soothing to the brain. Meditation can actually change the structure of the brain through altering behavior. The pain you feel will often become less intense. And then also offers new ways to handle pain. So often your actual pain doesn't decrease, but you can actually learn how to manage it more effectively by shifting that focus onto something more soothing, more positive. And then, like I mentioned before, the accompanying conditions get better. So stress, anxiety, and depression caused by chronic pain can compound your back problems, and meditation can help to alleviate these issues. So I provided you with, there's lots of different types of meditations, but I provided you with 5 of the most common ones that I think are the easiest to incorporate into your everyday life. So the first one is mindfulness meditation. So start simple with just 5 minutes per day. Don't get crazy and do an hour or anything like that. Just start simple. You're going to sit in a comfortable position. It can be cross-legged. You can sit on a pillow if you have a bolster or even a block. And then you're just going to close your eyes and begin to observe the breath as it enters and exits the nose. So just feeling the sensation as the breath comes in, feeling that cool air, and then on the exhale, noticing that sensation as it goes out, feeling that warm air now coming out through the nose. And then when the mind starts to wander to thoughts, just try to return to the sensations of the breath. The second one is a body scan meditation. So this meditation is really helpful for those who suffer from chronic pain, such as low back pain. This meditation can help you to consciously relax different parts of the body. So you can either begin at the top of the head and work your way down the body, or start at the feet and work your way up. So depending on where you start, you want to focus your attention on that body part. You're going to inhale into that body part. And then on your exhale, you're going to just imagine releasing all the muscles in that area, or even if it's top of the head, starting to release those thoughts. And then just working your way down one body part at a time, or working your way from the feet up to the top of the head, just relaxing each body part. You can even do that kind of contract release where you like contract the muscle on the exhale, release, and that helps to kind of relax that different body part as you move through the body. And then the third one is a walk meditation. So this one is going to be similar to the mindfulness meditation, but instead of focusing on the breath, you're going to focus on your footsteps to become fully present. So by focusing on the physical sensations of each step, you actually create that mind-body awareness, and that brings you into the present moment. So that's a really nice one that you can, once it cools down, we can get back outside and walk, just to kind of start, just like you did for that body scan meditation, start from the ground up. And just maybe focusing on gratitude every step you take. Be grateful for your big toe, your second toe, your third toe. Work your way up all through the body. This one's a really, I do this one myself, and it's really helpful. And then our fourth one is a loving kindness meditation. So this meditation is geared towards cultivating compassion towards yourself and others. So just once again, find that comfortable seated position, focusing on the breath. And then you start to direct love towards yourself. So you repeat, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I be safe. And you just repeat that about 5 to 10 times over and over to yourself. And then direct it towards someone you love. So repeating, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you be safe. And put that person's picture in your mind's eye. And then you continue to bring other people into your awareness. It might be somebody that you struggle to get along with. It might be somebody that you don't know, maybe the world as a whole. And you'll start to notice how you do find that you're becoming more compassionate towards yourself and others in your everyday life. And then our final one is transcendental meditation. So this type of meditation involves focusing on a mantra, a phrase, a word, just repeating it out loud or silently during your meditation. So it could be Om, it could be I am pain-free, I am strong, whatever you want to focus on. And that mantra becomes the object of awareness, allowing you to bring the mind into the present moment. So a couple little tips for when you get started meditating.
This is,
you want to focus.
Amy, this is Seth.
Yes.
I think we might have to switch on to Chris. We're a little bit over time.
Sounds
here.
good. No worries. You guys check this out on your own, and then that was it. So just a little summary that yoga meditation can help ease that low back pain by soothing that tense muscles, strengthening weak ones, shifting the focus from pain to the present moment. So thank you so much, you guys.
This was awesome. All right. Chris got logged out, so I have to log him in real quick.
Do I need to change it over to him? Or can you do that on your end?
Nope, I can do that.
Okay, cool.
Just let him in. So now I should make him the host. All right. There you are, Chris.
There we are. Judith is in. Let's see here. All right. How's everybody doing? Good, good, good. My name is Chris Litten. I'm the owner of Body Basics Health and Fitness here in wonderful Tucson, Arizona. We focus on serving those 55 and above to move better, to feel better, to live better. I love what we heard already relating to kind of getting things moving and flowing. And what I'm going to talk about now is kind of that other side. We're actually going to talk about stiffness, but healthy stiffness. So there is actually a yin and yang with being able to move freely and then also to be able to develop tension, therefore stiffness, and we're going to visit that. So here we go. Let's see, wait for that. Okay, so training the core in 3D is going to be our topic today. When we talk about exercise, there is just a plethora of information out there and so many different directions we could go. So I'm focusing on this direction here. And you'll see at the bottom here, it's all about the TLF. What is the TLF? The TLF is the thoracolumbar fascia. That's one aspect of our fascial network that's pretty amazing because it connects our upper body with our lower body. And when we are doing things to support maintaining healthy stiffness in that area, we're doing wonderful things for protecting our core all the way around, hips and otherwise. So let's kind of visit that. So first, this is a great picture because forget about all the muscles and all that for right now. There's a lot of muscle here and so on, but appreciate how the thoracolumbar fascia interweaves all throughout different layers of these muscles. That's important to know because if we're connecting the dots with putting the appropriate tension or awareness into those muscles, we are supporting building stiffness in that thoracolumbar fascia. And what are we talking about specifically? We're talking about all these different muscles here. So the deep spinal muscles, rector spinae. Deep spinal would be more towards the spine itself. Rector spinae are some longer muscles along the spine in different directions, vertically. Quadratus lumborum, they kind of function like tent stakes holding onto the sides at our hips and to our ribs. Psoas major and minor, deep into actually connecting our kind of our inner thigh area through the abdomen to the lower back and and an aspect of our rotating thoracic spine. Latissimus dorsi, big muscle connecting the underside of our arm all the way down and into that thoracolumbar fascia. Transverse abdominis, basically like our human belt that's giving us support all the way around, and internal obliques. So all of these muscles have some kind of interplay through that web that I showed you before right here to give us healthy tension. So what we're going to focus on today, first thing I wanted to share, with that I have that idea of 3D. My top 4 exercises that we do with pretty much all of our clients of all ability levels, just finding what's appropriate, would be some version of what is called a bird dog. That's this picture here. Some version of what's called a bug. It's typically called a dead bug. We like to call it more of a vibrant bug. It's happier. Who needs dead stuff? This one right here, there's a band you could see possibly right there, a little line there. That's called a Palloff press, working anti-rotation. And then down here, this is a suitcase hold. So what we're doing is we're holding some kind of resistance on one side, challenging our body to hold steady and not get flexed to sideways. So all of these together are pretty concrete aspects of our training here at Body Basics. And I'm sure you would hear the same from the others as to their benefit in maintaining that healthy core musculature literally in a 3-dimensional manner. The benefit to these exercises is through all of them, you're going to be getting this combination. I'm going to stand up here. You're going to get this combination. Whoops, don't fall. You're going to get this combination of anti-lateral flexion, so resisting lateral flexion, resisting extension or excessive flexion, and resisting rotation. The resisting of those moves are where we're going to get that stiffness that we're looking for. So for today, given our timeline, rather than hitting all these exercises, what I wanted to do was pull out one of these that I don't see used as much, which is this idea of a suitcase hold. And I just wanted to carry in how you can implement that strategy into these common movements, pushing, pulling, lunging, and hinging. Because if we're all aging well, these are all things that we're going to want to do no matter what age we are. And the other thing I want to share kind of through the rest of my time today is how we can go from one side of the continuum where these can be considered very foundational, and man, we can just continue to push this to the other side of that continuum where you're doing some pretty amazing and intense stuff, given that you've met all the prerequisites along the way to get there. So we're going to start first with the lower body, and then we're going to finish with the upper body, because typically there's an integration of the two, and you'll see what I mean as we get going. So this first thing, like I said, first let's consider this at its foundational level.
Hey, Chris, I think I don't know if I'm the only one that can't hear you.
No, I was going to say his form is impeccable. He's really holding that position.
I'm going to. Are you there, Chris? So, of course, we've had our fair share of technical difficulties today. So the camera's back on me, but I think we are getting kind of close to the time when we should switch it over to John. So do you just want to do that, John? We'll let Chris, if he has any summary comments when he comes back on, just jump in, but
Sure.
does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make you the host here. Should be good.
All right. Let me get my slides up so we can see what we want to see. All right, hopefully people can see my slides. Yay? Yeah, head nods, good. So the piece I'm going to talk about as a non-surgical orthopedic specialist is nutrition. So how about that? And why? Because this diagram is complex, but I'm going to take the complexity out of it. To look at all these inputs our cells are getting, down to the deep building blocks of our body, we have cells that comprise tissues. We look at muscle tissue, it's made of muscle cells. But we have all these factors, these inputs from age to injuries to the quote unquote wear and tear. And then we have these inflammation inputs. We have pain inputs. And as we feed down through this chain, we can see that diet, nutrition has a big piece in what happens in the deeper cellular structures. So we look at how the body ages. We have this oxidative stress, we have this enzymatic stress, we have these nutritional inputs that are really going to influence how people continue to move, because the very cells that are vital to our movement, our musculoskeletal system, as you're going to learn about in a minute, are really, really impacted by these nutritional inputs. So I found my way into this due to an episode back in February of 2012. And I'm holding this thing in my hand that's a skunk, actually. It was a little skunk. And this episode of my life really stunk because I injured my back quite severely. And I had had a history with my back, and this was kind of the third go around with it. And so as I was coming through this as a doc out early in my practice, I had had 2 surgeries on my spine at this point, in my 20s. I was facing a potential third, and I came across this very quote that somebody passed along to me, that when you're injured, when you're sick, like all you want to be is not injured, not sick. And when we're healthy, I mean, we got 1,000 things in front of us that we want to do. All that brought me to this moment of deeply researching how does our body actually repair itself at the core of it, at the cell level, at the nutritional level. What was I not taught in 15 years of medical school training and out in practice? Because what I was doing in a lot of my practice at that time was simply squashing inflammation in one's body by using various medications. And I found my way into this field called regenerative medicine. And what that means is to restore or reestablish the optimal cellular and system function of the body, to activate the processes of repairing, replacing, or regenerating these cells, because this is what our body does for us, so that you can halt and reverse inflammation, pain, and disease. So that sounded pretty attractive. And that really was the impetus for me stepping out of my old practice into my new practice to really study this stuff and focus everything I do non-surgically to help musculoskeletal orthopedic issues is built around this concept that our body has this innate capacity to actually heal itself. The default mechanism is to repair and regenerate, but we have to create the right environment for the body to do that. And part of that very environment at the deep level are these things, stem cells. And how people think that research stem cells is how they work on the context of injury is to suppress inflammation and release these proteins. And we've all heard this term cytokines over the past couple of years with COVID cytokine storm, but there can be a healthy version of this. So not all inflammation is bad. Not all stiffness, as we just learned, is bad. But these processes, these proteins, these chemical signals in our body is really what slows down the aging of our body and can actually turn the other way and restore proper function and regenerate cells, tissues, the things that were aging out. Because here's some great facts about the body. 30 trillion cells in our body. We produce about 330 billion new cells each day. Sitting here, you're regenerating about 1 million cells a second. And this stat here is the highlight that I want people to take away from this conversation. Your body in the musculoskeletal arena, we're looking at cartilage on the end of a bone. It's not a finite thing. It's not rubber on a tire that wears out and then it's gone, but this is what most people believe. So your entire musculoskeletal system from the cellular level is going to turn over approximately every 5 to 7 years, rotating out old cells, regenerating new cells. The problem is we age. The problem is we put demand on our body, and as we do that, things go downhill. and we can't repair as fast as we're breaking down. And that's where people get into the wear and tear cycle, where in times of illness, injury, years of, maybe questionable lifestyle choices, the degenerative process overwhelms the regenerative process. And this is where people kind of break, right? And this is what usually leads them into my office. But when we think about this differently and we read books like this, like Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, the science and technology of growing young, there's a lot of things we can do. And a lot of it is pinned around some nutritional principles, because I'm not going to be able to detail a personalized version for everybody, but I'm going to give you a high level principles today, because this is where a lot of people end up, joint replacements, things like that. But do we have to go there? Is there a way that somebody can actually cut off that, what appears to be this downward slide towards joint replacement, big spine surgeries, things like that? So today I'm going to share 3 big takeaways in the next 9 minutes, I think I have. What 2 common medications block regeneration, literally kill joint cells, and may potentially kill you. What you should be feeding your joints to survive and help them thrive. And the quick down and dirty behind nutritional supplements, because there's a lot of dirty in the supplement world. So if we jump into this first one, I want to use this picture to set it up. So if we're injured, we get inflamed. And when we get inflamed, we do what? If anybody wants to throw that in the chat, be curious what people think. But when we get injured and we get inflamed, we do what? Just throw it in the chat. And then our body has an opportunity to do something. It has the ability to signal things into the environment nutritionally, cellularly, to help our body regenerate, remodel, repair, which takes us up the ladder here to complete healing. But if we short circuit that, and I'll throw it in here because nobody else did, it's these guys, right? So if we throw anti-inflammatory medications at the body en masse, and a lot of it for a long time, like in the meantime, just keep taking these, is what I hear a lot from people that see me. And there's a host of these that have been produced over the years. So the number one thing not to take in my arena when I'm working with patients is NSAID medications for long periods of time, because they impair this very process that your body uses to heal, and impairs a lot of other things in your body. And this good with the bad strategy that people use, like this morning, a guy said, well, I'll take 3 ibuprofen before golf and 3 ibuprofen the next morning. But what we're doing there is we're disrupting a natural chemical pathway from happening in the body. We could also disrupt other essential pathways in the body, like kidney function or gut health, right? Which are really, really key for your body to repair itself. And if we disrupt those, we're not going to heal. And they come with a host of other side effects, like I put on this slide: gut ulcerations, renal dysfunction, edema, hypertension, cardiovascular problems, heart attacks, host of side effects. Which takes me to the next one. The second thing that I would advise people not to take into their body is corticosteroids, if we can avoid it, because as you see on this slide in this study from Stanford that was done now 7 years ago, they said that the beneficial dose of a steroid injection was about 3 milligrams. 3. And most people in a standard corticosteroid injection get 40 to 80 milligrams. Okay, so what they looked at in the lab is, what does it take to kill cartilage in the joints? And it didn't take much more than a few milligrams to start killing off cartilage cells. So we know cortisone is toxic to cartilage. Even anesthetics at high dose can be toxic to cartilage. But if we keep putting that into joints, where does it go? Well, we kill cells, we kill tissue, we kill cartilage, you kill the very cartilage that most people are trying to preserve. Which moves us to what you should be feeding your joints to survive and thrive. So if we go to the food pyramid, the healthy eating pyramid that everybody's seen some version of it, I like what this gentleman had to say on his website, because he likes to help people without beating up their bodies or pushing gimmicky diets. So we're going to talk about principles, not gimmicky diets. And I like this, that I grabbed somebody else's website, but like to really help the body flourish and thrive, we need to create this environment where we're nourishing it with good food, right? And things that we think are nourishing, not neutral, is how I like to think it, versus good and bad. And it needs to be personalized. So I took this, I like this on Seth's site as well. I mean, it's got to be personalized. So it's going to be hard to personalize this to everybody in the last 4.5 minutes I have now. But let's start with the food, because multiple studies show that when we're talking about things like arthritic conditions, which is going to be one big disabler for a lot of people as they age out, multiple studies, study after study shows ample fruits, veggies, omega-3 fatty acids, things we get from like fish. The result is an improvement of OA symptoms, including improved mobility in the joints. And we believe it happens because it decreases the production of these inflammatory cytokines and mediators. Thus, the incidence and progression of OA slows down. So if we go back to this diagram, they're talking about this key thing right here in the middle. If we disrupt that pathway by eating more good things in our diet, things don't flow down the pathways that lead to destruction. So if we look at some of the top 6 categories of foods that stoke inflammation that some people may be eating, and some of those may be seen as maybe fairly healthy, natural sweeteners, sugar, okay, wheat and other grains, dairy products, nightshades, highly refined processed foods, and what I say crappy oils like most vegetable oils, are all things that can stoke more inflammation. And it's going to drive things down a pathway in the body that we don't want to go down, because I'm going to jump to that, because if we look at this slide, it forces things down these pathways where we generate these inflammatory mediators that really break the joint down faster and faster. Because the difference between an omega-3 and a 6, we need them all in the body, but the 3s, you can see, drive down these pathways, right, where they're inflammation resolving, where more of the 6s, things we get from vegetable oils and grains and things like that, in higher proportion are going to feed down pro-inflammatory pathways, beat the body up. So it's pretty easy to look at it, 3s over 6s. So that ratio is something really important that I help patients pay attention to. How much are we getting? Because 70% of the US population is deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. And so if their balance is upset, right, they need to either decrease their consumption of 6s or add some 3s in their life. Which brings us to the quick down and dirty, because we got to be really quick about this. Natural and healthier inflammation modulators and pain relievers. So I want to get people off those NSAIDs, off the steroids, but there's a few things on screen here that people can consider. Curcumin has been around for a long time, and it's a great anti-inflammatory. So is fish oil, those omega-3s, again, that EPA, DHA. And then we get into things like proteolytic enzymes or other plant compounds, and there's a ton of them. I don't think anybody on the planet hasn't heard about CBD, but it is a natural anti-inflammatory compound. Boswellia, ginger, quercetin, rutin, rosemary, resveratrol, all those are anti-inflammatory compounds. So if we start stacking those things in there, we can also start to shift that inflammation, because if we shift the inflammation, we slow the degeneration, which then brings us into joint rebuilders. So what are the actual nutritional elements of joint? So if we go look at a picture real quick like this one, it looks like a sponge, and we have collagen fibers, and we have these other molecules in there. And what that is this stuff. So we have these collagen peptides, we have glucosamine within that structure, hyaluronic acid that lubricates the joint, and yes, fun things like green-lipped mussels, all have these compounds in them that can be very beneficial for helping reconstruct joints, basically supplying building blocks for the joint to repair. So if we take that as a whole and we look at this in a very brief snapshot today, the natural chemistry in our body, right? Early intervention is the key. When people are inflamed, are we making the right pivot there to, one, understand, is it a mechanical thing like we heard Amy and Chris talk about? Can we rework the body in a way that they all do, including Seth in their practice, to say, okay, if I'm getting a signal of pain, like, do I want to just blunt that with an anti-inflammatory medication? Do I want to understand what's being triggered in the tissues or in the structure of my body and why I hurt? And can I start to shift that natural chemistry with things that are more natural and nice for the body versus coming with a host of side effects? So NSAIDs are not a good long-term strategy due to way too many negative health repercussions. And these natural compounds that I threw up very briefly on the screen are all clinically effective. I got a whole file of articles that I could share with people that show each one of these have been studied at certain doses to have almost equal effects, if not better, with less side effects than NSAID medications or steroids. So again, the key is really, we got a big access point that we can use in this whole destructive degenerative pathway. And that's what I look to leverage in my practice. My journey took me on a discovery of this stuff, and I wrote a whole book about it more than 10 years ago. And I'm going to drop it in the chat, so anybody that wants it can just download it. And it's those, even though I've wrote that over 10 years ago, every principle in that book still holds true today because I wrote it around these principles and really not gimmicky fad kind of stuff. So that's my time. I want to keep Seth on time. This is us. We're down on Oracle Road now. You can find us 7790 North Oracle. And we actually have a sign up finally, so people can actually find us. So that's my time. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, John.
So let me, yep, okay, you got it.
Got it. I'll let Chris in. Well, so I'm the last leg of the stool here. I'm going to talk about sleep. So far we've had Amy talk about mindfulness or meditation. Chris talked about exercise. Dr. Tait talked about diet and all of the things kind of adjacent to that. And so I'm going to talk here about sleep. So, and hopefully we have enough time. I know, as we get closer to the end, we're going to have some of us might be able to stay. Chris said he could stay on and answer a few questions. So that might be good, especially since he got cut off, because I guess the internet isn't perfect nowadays. So he will be able to do that. I do have to leave right at 1. And so we might have a few people that could stay on if you guys do have questions. So let me move this out of the way. How do I? Okay. So sleep better to move better. That's going to be the topic here. And this is interesting because when it comes to sleep, which is something I do try to touch on with all my patients, there is this big variety between animals. We're an animal, right? Dolphins are amazing. They don't actually, they can go weeks without sleeping because they can switch off different components of their brain. So it's rare that you'll see a dolphin sleeping. Whales need to only sleep about 30 minutes. That's actually the position that whales sleep in, blue whales. And there's a variety in different species of whale. Puppies sleep about 14 hours, and so do puppy human beings, also known as babies. And this is my son, but that's different, right? As we get older, that time requirement changes. So the amount that teens require is about 9.5 hours, but just like us, they usually don't get that. They get about 7 on average. Adults, anyone over 18 years old, functions optimally with 8 hours of sleep. The average that we get is 6.8. And so you'll hear a lot of people, at least I hear a lot of people say that I only need 6 hours. And they're functioning at a good level with 6. They're used to that. But what I've heard sleep specialists say is, if you think you're functioning well at 6, there's just a guarantee that you're going to function better with that extra 2 hours. You just are used to functioning at the level that you do with 6 hours. So insufficient sleep, these are all the conditions that insufficient sleep contributes to: diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, depression, chronic pain. It impacts every single tissue in your body. I think, especially in America, maybe we don't spend that much time addressing sleep and thinking about it. These are things that we know about sleep. If you can improve your sleep, you'll be happier. You tend to learn better. It actually improves your vision. It affects your skin. You tend to have fewer heart problems, as I just spoke about. It lowers your risk of certain cancers. You have better sex. You're less likely to abuse alcohol. You speak better. Your muscle can build during those hours. So it's hugely positive. The American Heart Association just this year added it to their essential 8 for heart health. So again, sleep, it's right there next to exercise on that list, and not smoking. That's how important this is. We also know it's not good for pain. So in this study, I don't know who volunteers for these studies, but they deprived healthy people of sleep and found that pain sensitivity increased just after 24 hours, which lowered their ability to deal with the pain or modulate the pain. It increases your risk of fibromyalgia. So people that get lower sleep actually have a greater risk of developing fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain syndrome. It can also contribute to systemic inflammation, some of the stuff that Dr. Tait was just talking about. If you have poor sleep health, it disrupts our body's mechanisms for controlling inflammation, and again, every tissue in your body. Basketball players perform better. So shooting accuracy was changed by 9%, both free throw and three-point shooting, in case you were wondering. On-court speed in basketball players has improved if they get better sleep. So, okay, how can you sleep better? Step number one is don't have kids. I can tell you that right now. If you want to sleep, first step, do not have children. That doesn't help. Okay, if you've passed that, you don't have kids, then you need to start thinking about generally what can you do on the sleep hygiene front. So there are a ton of different rules depending on the sources you look at for sleep hygiene. I think this is just a good basic one here, and I'll just run through these really quick. If you can sleep, sleep in silence. The darker you can get the room, the better. Don't eat that much right before you go to sleep. Try not to smoke or use alcohol before you go to sleep. Taking a walk before you go to bed sometimes can help. Again, not pushing yourself to the point where you're exercising right before you go to bed, but something more relaxing. Trying not to take caffeine. Sometimes you see the number at 4 o'clock, trying not to have caffeine. That has to do with metabolism, I believe, of caffeine. That's why that number is thrown out there. But 4 o'clock, try not to have caffeine after that point. Sleeping on a firm, comfortable bed, having a certain temperature of the house that you get it at. So usually people like it a little bit cooler at night. Try to get on a schedule. So you go to sleep at the same time every night, and it's a schedule where you're going to go to sleep and wake up and have enough time to get that 8 hours that you need. All right, this is a tougher one in today's day and age, but trying to get off the electronics before bed, this is a tough thing for a lot of the patients. If sleep is a big factor in their pain, then I try to problem solve along with them. This is a tough one for a lot of people, including myself, to not be on the phone after dinner, but that is a good thing to do as well. Okay, and so let's just say that you've addressed those things. One little sequence that you could think about, we've had Amy talk about mindfulness, so we're going to build off that a little bit. If you want to get into a ritual, this might be one ritual that you could do to prepare your body and your brain for sleep. A lot of times these worries in our mind are what stops us from going to sleep. So if you have that, you can journal. You can write down things that you're going to do the next day. I think mentally that helps prepare us and set those things aside so that your brain doesn't have to focus on them. Visual imagery, like imagining you're at a beach and you can visualize the waves coming in. Doing a body scan. I think Amy talked about this as well. So you're focusing on different parts of your body, relaxing each different component of your body as you move along, and then lying down. And a good tip is if you don't fall asleep within 40 minutes, I think it's good to just stand up, walk around, and then sit back down again, because it does, the ritual of getting into bed, there's something to that with getting you to sleep. So sitting there and being awake and alert doesn't help. So reinitiating the cycle if you don't fall asleep in 40 minutes. Positioning is huge. So this is maybe in physical therapy a thing that we tend to focus on the most. You can see this picture on the left where, a gentleman with neck pain, just changing the size of his pillow made a difference. So you can see at the top of this picture on the left, his neck, the wrinkles on his neck are a giveaway that his neck is side bent to the left. So his head is hanging down relatively to the left, and just building up his pillow was able to support his neck and he could sleep better. This is an example on the right where my head in this picture is intentionally in extension. If you're lying on your back, you might have to position your head a little bit higher so it gets into neutral. And then sometimes a tough thing, if you have back pain or if you have hip pain when you're sleeping or discomfort in that area, there are all sorts of things you can do with pillows. Ever since my wife had her second pregnancy, she sleeps with like 9 pillows. But it helps support her joints. It helped during pregnancy, and she's just noticed the value of it. So you can see here on this top picture, putting a pillow under your arm or a body pillow that goes under your arm and under your knee. Throwing your knee up and over a couple pillows can help. One difference between the top picture and the bottom picture is this pillow under my side. If you can see that arrow pointing to it in the bottom picture, that pillow under the side can help lift your spine a little bit. So if you can see, my spine in the top picture has dropped down a little. And that's this difference between the waist, or the diameter of my hips versus the diameter of your waist. Especially in women, this is an issue, where if you lie on your side, your spine is relatively bent to the side, which isn't always comfortable, especially if you have back pain. So those are different positioning tips that you can use. We talked about all these different things today with mindfulness, exercise, diet, and sleep. And I think this is a useful way to think about the movement, which we've been focusing on. We've all touched base on different factors and different body systems that are influenced by movement. And sometimes, at least conceptually, I think it's helpful to think about movement as its own system that's made up of the nervous system, of the endocrine system, of the musculoskeletal system, cardiovascular system. Movement is a component of all of those systems. And there's been a medical textbook even that's defined movement as its own system. So now kind of the intent of this is to help inform you guys with different tips from all the people that you heard from today, who I think of as experts practicing at the top level of their craft in town in Tucson, where you can start to learn how you can be empowered to improve your movement, whether it's through mindfulness, exercise, diet, or your sleep. So have this in your mind, this MEDS acronym, as you go forth and try and focus on improving your movement throughout the day. So I think we'll probably open it up for questions. Chris said he was going to be able to stay in past 1 p.m. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, let's open it up. Chris, are you there, Chris? Yeah,
Yeah,
I see you.
I'm here.
You did cut out. Do you have like a little summary of what you wanted to say? I want to make sure you have a chance to do that.
Well, it was only about half of my presentation, so yeah. Darn internet. I wanted to talk about just how we can integrate something like, I want to look specifically at anti-lateral flexion. So carrying some kind of hand weight, maintaining control, and then appreciating how from this, either standing or, and I did say earlier that I haven't had anybody that couldn't do this. That wasn't true. If you are wheelchair bound or otherwise, which I've had, for sure, sitting. So even sitting, being able to have some kind of weight to the side while you're sitting, you're still going to get that benefit, even in a sitting position. So I would come back to that. And then just where I wanted to go with it was just how we can take that same idea, and I'm going to give
Chris froze again. This is going to be like a stand-up routine.
Okay, well, I'll take a question on then for Amy. If you could pick one of your meditative practices, right, that you think is most impactful for a beginner to implement a practice into their daily life, which should you select for them to say, hey, start here?
I think it would definitely be the first one, just the mindfulness, just sitting in a comfortable position and breathing, just focusing on the breath in and out. A lot of times when you do a guided meditation, when you're first starting, it really helps. And there's a few free apps. There's Insight Timer is a really good one. You can actually type in what you want to focus on. So if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, maybe some type of issue with your pain, whatever, you can type it in and I'll give you a list of different guided meditations that you can run through. Insight Timer is one. The Calm app, I do believe that one you have to pay for. But there's a lot of different apps that you can do for guided meditations. Those tend to be a little bit easier rather than sitting there, because the thoughts do come in, obviously. It's hard to sit still. So I always do recommend starting with a guided meditation or just simply focusing on sitting and breathing. So, yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Do you have any other ones? I might jump in, John, and just ask, what's the current thinking on inflammation? So if you had to summarize it, is inflammation, I'm going to just set you up here. Is inflammation good or bad? What should people be thinking about controlling inflammation?
I think I liked how Chris presented, stiffness, people always see as bad. I got to be hyper flexible. I got to be more flexible, but it is that balancing act. So on the front end, we know when we're injured, we have inflammation. We can't trigger the sequence of events that happen from a self-repair mechanism if we're always short-circuiting that early stage. And it's one of the things that was programmed deeply into my brain and my sports orthopedic medicine training to get people on anti-inflammatories right away. We don't want them to swell. We don't want them to hurt. And people don't want to feel that. But there's actually a purpose for that. Now, when it moves to the chronic stage where people are chronically inflamed, then we're deploying some of these strategies that are more natural and healthy for you to use chronically, because chronic's got a bad connotation to it too. But if I'm chronically putting good things in my body, or consistently, I like to switch it to, that help with inflammation and drive that inflammatory systemic inflammation down, then it's a good thing for me. And really, it's just creating that shift in, okay, is this a short-term thing I'm trying to get through? And if this is a long-term strategy we're building, like, how do we make that pivot? Because it is something that's been rooted into our brain through marketing of Bayer aspirin for decades, and then every other anti-inflammatory company afterwards, that you just take a couple of these things and hey, you can go do your activity. Don't worry about it. Just take 2 of these and go build the shed, play the round of golf, whatever it is. But if we do that over and over, they were never intended to be long-term meds. So when we flip them into that long-term med category, if people are taking maximum dose daily, it really just has some really bad effects on the body over time, cumulatively. So we need inflammation, is the short answer, but in very strategic bursts here and there.
Yeah, I love this acronym. I mean, everybody's probably familiar with that RICE acronym, but I think the recent one is peace and love, right? Protection, elevation, avoid anti-inflammatories, compression, education, load, optimism, vascularization, exercise. So it's kind of like everything we're talking about. It's funny how it's just pivoted completely.
Yep.
All right, guys, I think that's it. And so I'll stop the recording. And in this, if you guys do have any questions, if you think of anything, yeah, let us know, reach out. I'll just post my email right in the chat if you guys want that. But otherwise, this has been great. Thank you guys for doing this. I've loved it.
I don't even want to say anything because I'll disappear again.
I have a question.
Yes.
I think I put it in the chat, but I wasn't clear about what I needed there. Can you please repeat, Amy, what it was that you were saying? Is that an app?
Oh, yes. If you go to Insight Timer.
INSIGHT
Correct.
TIMER?
Yes, Insight Timer. That one's a free one.
Okay,
And that one has millions of different meditations that you can do. And then there's also the Calm app. And Smiling Mind is another one. That's one that I use. I do kids yoga here as well. And so I do that one with kids because you can pick the age range, but they also have it for adults as well. And that one is free.
And can you spell that? Smiley or Smiling?
Smiling, SMILING, Smiling Mind.
Minds, plural. Okay, thank you so much.
Of course, you're welcome.
Well, I think that's a wrap, huh?
It's something.
Yeah. Well, good. Thanks for everybody who showed up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go control some inflammation with my patients. All right.
Bye, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.